Painting 1 class. This video is about your first project. Notice in the classwork section of Google Classroom now there's a projects tab here or page. Our first project is called the Georgia O'Keeffe Flower Project. There are some very basic instructions here. This is where you will eventually turn in your finished painting, a photograph of this. Don't have to worry about that yet. Here's what the project is going to look like. I've got a few student examples here I'll show you. And we'll come back to those. First thing you're going to do is find a flower, even if it's a photograph of a flower, and sketch on your small white canvas. You've got 2 of those, and you'll use 1 for this. This is 2 sketches, okay? So pretend this is 2 canvases. So this is a student sketch, and this is another sketch by the same student. Another sketch. Notice these sketches are just in pencil, and there's no, on your canvas, I don't want you to actually shade anything. Okay, these are sketches on paper. When you sketch on canvas, I don't want you to shade, like in this background here. Don't shade on your canvas because that's going to mess up your painting that you'll put on top of that. When you sketch on your canvas, just sketch lightly, as light as you can, and eventually you're going to add more of the detail when you paint. Another thing to think about here is composition. Notice how all of these flowers is just 1 or 2 flowers, and it's taking up the entire space. I don't want to see you sketch a little flower that takes up this much space. Take up the whole space. Notice how the flower petals are going off the edges. I know this one's kind of hard to tell what it is, but it's a rose with rose petals, and it's taking up the space on the canvas. I think this right here is background, negative space, but just very little of that should be showing. Again, here, there's 1 flower, not very much background space showing around those edges. This is my favorite one here, I think, this first one, the one on the right side. It's a nice, interesting angle of that flower and fills up the space nicely. So that's your sketch. You're going to do that on the small canvas in pencil, lightly, no shading. You'll leave that for the paint. Let me show you some actual Georgia O'Keeffe paintings. She was an artist, in the 1900s, an American artist. Here's some of her work. So this is a pineapple blossom. Come on. This is an iris. Again, notice how much space these are taking up. Notice how they're going off the edges. Another different kind of iris flower. Almost looks like fire. Kind of cool. And then poppies. And notice how each one has a color harmony. This one's warm colors. This one also is warm colors. This one is mostly cool colors, other than the yellow. Mostly cool colors. And this one is red and green, which are opposite colors, also known as complementary colors. I would like you to try to choose a color harmony like one of those to use for this project. Real quick, here's some of her other work. This is a photograph of her. This one is a landscape painting. If you look at it sideways, it's actually a range of mountains, with sky above, some trees below, and then it's just mirrored. The image is mirrored on the other side, and it makes it look totally different. She was also known for some of her abstract paintings, such as this one, and some paintings of bones in the desert. She lived in the southwest United States for part of her life and part of her career. So that's some of her work. You can look up other work of hers online if you're curious. And back to the student examples. All right, one big thing on this project is going to be using washes. Georgia O'Keeffe did this on a lot of her work, but we're going to focus on it even more. So this one was a white canvas like you're going to use and a white flower, and the student built up just really transparent washes of blues and greens and a little bit of yellows. Also added some layers of white, but all these layers of color add up little by little to make a finished painting. This one is a little bit less washy. You can't quite see the transparent layers as much. This one you can see it really well. You can actually see through the flower to the background color. We're going to get back to that background color. That's something I want you to do too with a wash. Again, we'll come back to that. These each have, for the most part, a color harmony happening again. This one, the whole flower is done in warm colors. This one is purple, and then I know it's not exactly yellow, but it's close to yellow. Purple and yellow are complementary colors, so they look good next to each other. Any colors that are opposites of each other look good next to each other. And this one uses mostly cool colors with a white flower. If you do choose to do a white flower, remember, it's not all going to be pure white. There's actually quite a bit of color even in white objects. You just have to look closely. And that's actually harder to do than it is to paint a flower that has more color. So if you're not quite sure about that, not quite sure of your skills, I would recommend choosing a flower that has color. By the way, if you have flowers at home or even fake flowers, feel free to use those or find a picture online. It needs to be a close-up, however. Make sure it is a close-up of the flower. Or just draw it really big. Here's a video of how to do a wash for your background. Okay, I want to pause it there because I want you to make sure that you don't feel like you have to mix the paint anywhere except for on your actual canvas. I would recommend adding water and paint straight onto your canvas and spreading it out there instead of mixing a wash in your palette. Okay, so you can replay that if you want to, but that's what I want you to do for the background of your canvas. In this one, the student used blue, kind of a bluish, almost greenish color for the background before adding the petals and more painting there. This one uses a yellow to yellow-orange background. And then this one you can kind of see through there. You can see how that it started out as blue with then the paint added for the flower on top of that. Okay, so that is an introduction to your first project.